Hello there everybody in YouTube. It's time to do another summary of the past month, September vinyl CD update. However, I was a little bit hesitating whether or not I would going to do this one because before this Monday I had found so little that I thought it would be better to put it together with October. But this Monday I visited a newer thrift store that we have here in the city and managed to find 4 really great records, and I decided then that okay, let's do this. And with that I have revealed that September wasn't all that great. Once again, I think many of those who many people today hold on to their vinyl records, realizing that many of them can be worth something, or trying to sell them on the internet or something like that, in order to have money for them instead of giving them away for free to the thrift stores. And as you know, we only have one record store here in our city, so depending on how much money they get, they sell it somewhere. But let's not talk about the bad things. Let's look at the good things, what I have found. So let's start with the vinyl singles. That is only 2 of them. Here is a single that I bought almost on as a blind buy. I realized that it should be something soul stuff, and I think I have a record with this band. But when I put it on and listened to it, it was a song that I have partly recorded and that I have actually thought that I might want to have. So, but I haven't known what the title track is or who played it. So I was very happy, positively surprised by Midnight Star and their Operator, and the other side, Scientific Love, is from 1984. So very positive surprised. I said once before that I don't really buy Glenn Miller records, much because I think Glenn Miller is more or less the same songs everywhere, and it is these little soft, tame dancing music that he has. I prefer more swinging, yes. But sometimes I make exceptions, and those are mostly when it's live, because I'm a huge fan of live jazz, and I managed to find a Glenn Miller double EP set, 2 EPs in one sleeve, and called the Glenn Miller Concert. And I thought that why not? I like these Army Air Force recordings, among others, so could be very interesting. This is these are also songs that I don't have before, so it's not any one of these his normal Glenn Miller hits, as you can see. So I listened to it, and it might be one of the best stuff that I have with Glenn Miller, one that sounds most real jazz actually. So I was very, very happy with this one. Good to find an exception with a musician that you don't listen to normally. CDs, starting with some bossa nova, some genuine bossa nova recorded and originally released in Brazil. Clássicos da Bossa Nova, This is Clásicos da Bossa Nova. Una hora de música, which I think means 1 hour music in Portuguese. This is part of a series released that with other records called Clásicos do Choro, Clásicos dos Festivals, Clásicos, and so on. The musicians here are, I only heard of 2 of names here, João Gilberto and Marcos Valle. The other ones, Agostinho dos Santos, Silvia Tejes, Claudette Soares, and Milton Banana Trio, are more or less unknown to me, but it's going to be very, very interesting, as I do like Brazilian bossa nova music, genuine Brazilian bossa nova music, that is. We have Sting, Soul Cages from 1991. Nothing more to say about that. All This Time, I think, is the main single here. This one was a little bit of a blind buy, but I checked also out this name on YouTube, so I had little to go on. And the man's name is not Jimmy Smith, but Johnny Smith, Johnny Hammond Smith. And when you call yourself Hammond and sits like here next to a Hammond, you have to check it out. And I heard quick peeks from this one, and he's no Jimmy Smith, I'm not going to say that, but it's actually a good Hammond player. So it's going to be very interesting to listen to this album that contains 2 albums in 1 CD. He's pretty good, especially when he plays those jazz standards. He also has some songs that he done on his own that is so-so. But I think this one is going to be very, very interesting. Hammond, and that always attracts me. 2 Miles Davis CDs. This is Miles Davis ballads released on CBS Jazz Masterpieces, and I said before, I think CBS Jazz Masterpieces are really good releases, a really good label that releases both classical stuff and some that aren't just as ordinary. This is ballads that are mainly made around 1962-63. Some of them are with Gil Evans Orchestra, and some of them are with different kind of settings. But it's a really relaxing and smooth jazz album, and really great one that really highlights, really lifts up Miles Davis as a trumpet player. So highly recommended. And an album that I feel like almost every jazz lover has heard except me. But I realized that when I see it for $1, buy it, because the names are actually really interesting here. So I finally got myself a copy of Miles Davis' Kind of Blue. And we have Cannonball Adderley, Paul Chambers, James Cobb, John Coltrane, Bill Evans, Wynton Kelly. So very interesting, and an album that this has been 10 years ago, I said never that I buy it, but today, 43 years old, why not? And it sounds very interesting, the little I've heard. So, vinyl, and when we're in a jazz mood, let's start with something that I have said before that I have been more and more interested in. Call it getting older, I don't know, but I've gotten a newfound interest in accordion jazz played on accordion with some kind of a band in the back. And a name that I have mentioned before that is a very great name when he plays jazz is Søren Rydgren. This is Happy Tune, my second album with him. He plays here a lot of standards, Stardust, Billy's Bounce, Cute, all the things you are on accordion, Blue Moon, How High the Moon, and so on, with both quintet and trio. So I listened to this one and it's very relaxing, very, very smooth. One of the pioneers, or should I say one of the most famous Swedish accordion player is this one, Erik Frank. Mostly known for a classic song called Novelty Accordion. Here he plays with some of the most famous names in Swedish jazz. Lars Edstrand, Sture Nordin, Ove Lind. The album Fast Fingers that also contains a lot of jazz standards. Slip Disc, the Benny Goodman classic with Charlie Christian in the original. Samba de Orfeo Negros, little Latin music also. So this one I haven't listened to yet, but it's going to be very, very interesting. It's not all that often that I buy classical music, but this one looked very interesting. I most of all prefer older recordings when it comes to classical music. And of that is the hardest to find Baroque music that are recorded in the 1950s and before that. So for that I bought this one. It looked very interesting. Albert Schweitzer spielt Bach, Johann Sebastian Bach. Albert Schweitzer was a philosopher. He was a psychologist. He was a theologue. He was an artist, painted. He was a musical historical. He knew a lot about music history, and he also was a musician on his spare time, and especially he had this passion of Johann Sebastian Bach. And I checked out his name on Wikipedia, and he died around late 50s, mid 50s. So I felt like, why not? This could be mostly be recordings that are in the era that I'm interested in. So I bought this one, and it looks like some kind of a late 40s, 50s recording. So it's going to be very, very interesting to listen to the entire album. This one might be a little oddity to have. This is released on Verve, but it is Count Basie playing songs by the Beatles. Basie's Beatle Bag. Count Basie and his orchestra plays big band arrangements of Beatles songs, and we have the most classical songs here: Help, Can't Buy Me Love, Michelle, A Hard Day's Night, All My Loving, one of my favorite Beatles songs, Yesterday, She Loves You, and so on. Sounds very, very special. I'm not going to say that this is Count Basie's absolute best effort. Maybe it's a little bit of desperate way to keep up with the current musical trends at the time, but it is a very, very funny thing to have, a very odd thing to listen to, especially A Hard Day's Night. It's in a way that I think makes both Beatles fans and big band fans raise their eyebrows. This is a band from the 80s that didn't become all that big, at least not here in Sweden, but I managed to hear a song with them on Swedish radio back in the days. So, and that song has been growing on me ever since. So I felt like when I saw this album, even though it's cut out, I felt like I gotta have this one. The Bible and the album Eureka from 1988 and Crystal Palace might be their biggest hit, and that is a really, really good song. I listened to quick peeks of this album, and it sounds very, very interesting, very great produced, relaxing, and very well made. So this one is going to be very, very interesting to listen to the whole album. Sometimes I surprise not only the people I know, but also myself. And I managed to find myself a hard rock album. Can you believe that? This name I have on a cassette tape, on a cassette copy that I found somewhere. I bought it because it was Gary Moore on one side, and it was this man on the other side. However, now managed to find an album with Joe Lynn Turner. I was at that garden flea market that I showed in a previous video, where I showed different kind of places I bought records in during the summer. That garden flea market at Norra Vägen. And there I managed to, he had 50% sellout because he was closing for the summer. And there I managed to find this one, Joe Lynn Turner and Rescue You from 1985. I've been listening to quick peeks of it, and it sounds really, really interesting. It sounds a lot like Heart sounded like in these times and later on, and combined with some Gary Moore feelings and some Deep Purple feelings, which is not very strange actually. So this one is going to be very, very interesting to listen to to the whole album. It's a smoother hard rock that is really, 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 really interesting. And at the same place I also found Peter Wolf's album Come As You Are from 1987, consisting that song with one of the best videos I've seen. That is a song that really puts a smile on your face. And the song I Can't Get Started, also one of the hits that I also have heard on the Swedish radio back then. So Peter Wolf's most famous album. I also managed, going now into these albums that I found this Monday, which was the 1st of October. I know September had passed, but I thought that was the 1st of October. Don't be so greedy. Put them in here as well in September findings. I managed to find this one at that little newer second-hand thrift store that I talked about, Shoppis. Swing That Music, Ruby Braff and Red Norvo. Ruby Braff, cornetist, trumpet player, and Red Norvo, this man, plays the vibes. And this is a double LP set that I bought for $2, with the recordings from Paris back in 1969. And I listened to quick peeks of it, and it sounds like a little 40s small band swing, but with a newer sound as it's made in the 60s. So a really great classic swing album. And this one I was very happy about. This is an album called Anthropology, released on the Spotlight label. One of these low-budget labels that released lesser-known recordings, and that I really, really like. Here they have named Fats Navarro and Charlie Parker, and they are also here. We have Tad Dameron and his orchestra, which is very, very interesting, because Tad Dameron is a great pianist, composer, and arranger. Here Alan Eager, Walter Gray, Curly Russell, Kenny Clark, at Royal Rose 1948. Sounds really, really perfect. But what most caught my eye was Barry Ulanov and his all-star metronome jazz men. Barry Ulanov is not a musician. He is not playing any instrument here. He's not a part of this band. Barry Ulanov is a journalist who wrote a whole lot about jazz in the 40s and then converted into writing about classical music and opera. But he was also a very good friend with one of my absolute favorite jazz pianists, Lenny Tristano. So I started to look in the setting here with the personnel here and saw Lenny Tristano piano on 4 songs alongside with Fats Navarro and Charlie Parker, and here also John LaPorta, Alan Eager, Billy Bauer, his loyal follower, Tommy Potter and Buddy Rich, and we also have Sarah Vaughan singing on some songs here. So this is a very, very interesting jazz album that also, as you can see, is sealed. Why not make these nowadays pretty rare sealed to revealed, which I opened there, sealed to revealed videos. One doesn't see those often these days here at VC.
Billy Bauer, guitar. And you heard Lenny Tristano on that piano before, and Billy now.
Very, very interesting. And this mark, this little label here also marks that this is pretty much, it costed $4 once, so it's a little low budget release with some not too ordinary songs, which is, I like that kind of releases. The big labels always minor, of course, big ordinary labels like Universal or BGM or something, BMG and so on. They tend to release only these ordinary for people who wants to discover jazz, while these smaller labels, minus Verve of course, that are huge but releases original, but these minor labels like Spotlight releases not that known recordings for us who wants to discover new music with these artists. So this is very, very happy for this one. Swedish humor, Swedish comedy, with actor from a classic comedy actor from Sweden named Stig Järrel. Did a whole lot of great comedy stuff. I think he's mostly famous for being a great member of the panel in the Swedish version of Just a Minute, På minuten, in the from the 60s to the 80s. But he also was a fantastic comedian that always could deliver the jokes and his lyrics very hitting. So very happy to find this one. And finally, Rufus, without Chaka Khan, seal in red. Not going to say that this is one of the best looking covers that I've seen, but okay. And we have here, this is produced by George Duke. Quick peeks, I listened to it, and it sounds very funky, very great and interesting, even though it's a pretty newer Rufus album. So very happy with that one. So that was my September. Let's hope that October gets better. Can be tough because I have we have this Saturday, it is the Sundsvall Record Fair at Pipeline as usual, and I will be doing some filming there. And I have a Stockholm trip also that I'm going to show records from. So let's see what October brings. So the next video I will also make a response to the thread that James Griffith started about comebacks. So until next time, I hope that each and every one of you have a really nice time in the autumn, no matter where you are, no matter what you do. Take care and so long.